started smoking like at 12 years old because it was like the one thing that helped me mentally, at the time I didn't know, deal with everything that we was surrounded by. A lot of violence, a lot of hard drugs. We had to just survive with whatever we had, and I got caught with like over 20 pounds of weed.
Wow.
In your eyes, you think you're a man already at 21, but you're really still a kid. It was tough, man. It was a reality check. The way I was raised and what I used to believe was success is whoever had the bag, fly cars, the best lifestyle. That was the ultimate level of success. I have a different now perspective on what the ultimate level of success is. To me, the ultimate level of success is
Welcome to the Off the Count podcast. I'm your host, Jason Abreu, founder of Made Up North, a movement built on freedom, second chances, and redemption. Today's guest is a very special guest, someone that I've known personally for over 15 years, someone more than a friend, someone I consider a brother. You see, we both walk these same streets, we both got caught up in the prison system, but today we're both off the count and making it count. And for me, it's a total honor and privilege to be sitting right here in his beautiful legal dispensary right in my hometown, my stomping grounds, Uptown Dykeman, Happy Munkey. Without further ado, I welcome my guest, co-CEO, founder of Happy Munkey Legal Dispensary and Lifestyle Brand, Vladimir Bautista. Vlad, my brother.
Thank you for having me, my brother.
Thank you, man. Thank you, man. It's an honor, man. It's a privilege, like I said. You know, Vlad?
You know, we go back like car seats, man, and for our journeys to come full circle like this in a positive way now that we're in these chapters in our lives where, you know, we're not only trying to do good for ourselves, but we're trying to push positive messages for the community. It's just like, you know, full circle for both of us because, you know, life is chapters. For both of us to be at this same chapter in our lives from when we first met each other is definitely something.
Absolutely. It's funny, you know, you say that, Vlad, because when I reached out to you and I was kind of, you know, I like to kind of get organized before the my interviews. That's one of the first things that came to my mind. You said it, full circle moment, because thinking of how I knew you when you wasn't Vlad the CEO, when you were glasses, you know, and you knew me as Jason, the crazy party hard promoter, you know, partying, all about that energy, and to see that we were able to come from that to be having this sit down here in your own business is beautiful, you know, Vlad. So thank you for this opportunity, man.
And it's vice versa, man. For you to gone through everything you've gone through, you know, come home. And, you know, it's enough and it's already a battle just to get your life back in order, for you to, you know, just stay positive yourself, but for you to say, I'm going to create an organization and a business that helps others stay inspired when they go through what we've been through is like, says a lot about you, you know?
Thank you, Vlad. I appreciate it, man. So, you know, just to kind of get into it real quick, you know, Vlad, so the listeners out there could get a sense of, you know, because this is like more than a conversation. Like your story is one of pain turning to purpose, full transformation. So I'm glad we're gonna get into that. So tell me, you know, Vlad, a little bit about your upbringing, born and raised, where you from, and how that kind of played a part, you know, and you having your run-ins with the law or whatnot.
Well, I'm born and raised in Sugar Hill, Harlem, 139th and Broadway. Single mother, you know, raised me and my brother and my sister, you know, 80s and 90s, you know, a lot of violence, a lot of hard drugs, you know, and it was all around us everywhere. So it was like, you know, we were on coupons and welfare. So, you know, we had to just survive with whatever we had. And now that I look back, an immigrant mother from the Dominican Republic trying to raise 3 kids, also trying to do whatever she can to survive too. So it was rough, you know, and then from a young age, step outside and there's 100 guys in front of my building, you know what I mean? Doing what they got to do, you know what I mean? So it was just like, it was everywhere the hustle, the hard drugs, and all the things, all the negative things that was happening. And there was really not many positive examples for us to see, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's why, like, I always say that cannabis saved my life because, there was so many negative things that could have got into. And I started smoking like at 12 years old because,
Yeah.
dealing with a lot at the time, seeing all this, it was like the one thing that, helped me mentally at the time I didn't know, deal with everything that was surrounded by.
Yeah, I see. And it's funny you say that, how you say cannabis saved your life, because who would have thought something that before, you got penalized for would have done a full surface turnaround for you, Vlad? And we'll get into that. And environment definitely plays a part in that. I'm from right here, Uptown, born and raised, Dykeman Project. So we get so accustomed to what we see, then there's like, curiosity plays a part. And then with the fact that seeing our family, our loved ones having a struggle to try to make ends meet, that kind of definitely plays a major part, a major role in certain things that we did. But how old were you exactly, like when you actually went away to do time?
First time I went away to do time, I was 21 years old.
Okay.
I got caught actually up here. I had an apartment on 205th there, and I got caught with like over 20 pounds of weed.
Wow.
And stuff like that. And then I had a few other cases. I came out on bail, and altogether I got hit with a 1 to 3.
Yeah, because back then that weed wasn't definitely no slap in the wrist.
Oh no, hell no.
Nah,
It was a felony.
Yeah,
it was like a D felony.
Wow.
And they dropped it to an E felony.
So you were like in your early 20s when you went away?
21, yeah.
And how was like that experience for you going through that at such an early age? How and what kind of role did it play on your family? Because in my videos I've always mentioned like sometimes, and I used to be guilty of this, Vlad, I used to make it about myself when I went away. But truth be told, and I think you could probably agree, our loved ones, it really hits them hard, Vlad. So like, tell me, how was that, for your loved ones, seeing, a young 20-year-old having to go away and do a state bid?
It's really rough because they do the bid with you, especially at that age because, in your eyes, you think you're a man already at 21, but you're really still a kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So now your mother, your sister, your brother, they all have to come see you, send you packages, take your calls, and like they're doing the bit with you. So it was tough, man. It was a reality check because you hear about it, everybody makes it seem like jail is cool, prison is cool.
Yeah.
But then when you go through it yourself, you see there's nothing cool about it. So right away, remember, I'm 21 years old. They sent me to Rikers Island, C-74, adolescents at war. You know what I mean? Like
back then, that's like Rikers bad now, but back then it was even
tough.
really, you was really in the field, And I'm glad you mentioned that, Vlad, it's not cool. It's not cool, And I just want to reinforce that because that's what today our youth is seeing and, kind of believe in that. And it's absolutely not cool. So I'm glad you mentioned that point,
That's what I'm saying. It was a reality check because it's not cool, it's dangerous, and you're kind of wasting, valuable time that you can never get back. And like you said, and now you're dragging your family, friends, and entire ecosystem to go through that experience with you, and they be part of that suffering also.
Yeah. So you went away. You did like what? You maxed out on that?
No. I did a year. It's crazy how life works. Let me tell you how this is a very important lesson from everybody out there. How something small can end up being really big. So I got a 1 to 3. I went to Ulster. Then I went to Green Correctional Facility, which was like
the toughest medium.
The toughest medium with all the young 18 to 25 knuckleheads. Yep. So now they put me there. I have to defend myself. Somebody try to go in my locker, take my food. have an issue, go to the box for like 6 months. Then I'm coming out of the box and I'm like, what medium am I going to, Jason? Am I going to Bear Hill, water, whatever? They're like, no, you're not going to a medium. Like, what? Like, no, you like to get in trouble. You're going to your security, your classification went up. You're going to a maximum security
No way.
prison.
They send you behind the wall?
They sent me behind the wall to Elmira.
Oh my God,
So
man.
now, another reality check. 21 years old. 1 to 3. Now I'm surrounded behind the wall. 80 years, 30 years, 100 years. And the problems don't happen as often as they do in Green and Rikers, but when they do, they can get very serious. People can die, they can go to the hospital. So now I have the potential to get caught up in something like this and maybe never come home or have my stay extended, catch a new bid or whatever. Anything could happen. And I was just fortunate that some OGs took me under their wing and they were like, listen, we're going to hold you down, but if you ever come in here again, you're going to have a problem with us. And, they held me down.
They took you under the wing.
They took me under the wing, kept me out of trouble, right? You know what I mean? And, but it was just a lesson of like how you could start with something small, 1 and 3, and how it could snowball inside the system and you could lose your life.
Absolutely. Even when I was away, Vlad, I seen that happen. That was like common. Even guys that were getting ready to leave the day before, they'll end up messing up their date, having to max out. And that's one thing even my mother always used to tell me. It goes back to that. We always have a date when we get in the system, but we really don't know where to come out. So for you to get out of that, it was absolute blessing. I mean, even till this day, Elmira has always been known as Gladiator School. Like it's real in the field over there, So you do that, you come home, Vlad, and what does Vlad do when he come home? Like, you're on parole, I'm assuming. You was on parole, right, Vlad?
I was on parole for a year or two. Then I'm be honest with you, I ended up going back into the streets again. And, for a while, I was young. I was like, I could be smarter this time. And I ended up staying home for like 7 years. And then at around 28, 29, it was 2008. So yeah, I was like 27, 28 years old, boom, got caught up again. Now I'm a Pelican predicate. Now I get hit with 4 flat. Now I gotta go again, go through the same situation. And how the past haunts you is like racing where I'm like, well, 4 flat, going to medium, whatever. I know how everything works now. They're like, no, your classification is still where you left it at back then. So you go to a max on this new bid.
So straight from jump, they send you to a max.
They send me to a max. They send me to 5-point correctional facilities. So now I start there and last a year, and then I go to a medium after my classification goes down. But I'm just explaining to how they don't understand how all these things will affect you for the rest of your life.
Of course.
And, I had to, this was like when I really said, like, I really got to change my life. So I, how I used to waste the time in there, looking at videos, telling war stories, telling band camp stories. I was like, nope. I was reading nonstop books about what I want to do. I wanted to get into real estate. I read mad real estate books. I got my GED. I took electrical classes. I just really made my time really productive because I was like, that's it. I can't do this no more.
So that was like your turning point.
That was my turning point.
That's crazy. Funny you mentioned that. Same here. I went through similar situation. Went away, 18 months later, reoffended. And that was also my turning point. And I actually focused on the things that you did. I did a lot of reading. I had them sending me a lot of books. And I just said, enough is enough. I'm going to come out here and do it different. So you go do that 4 flat, and I guess it's fair to say you was really able to unlock your full potential, right, Vlad? Like you said, I'm coming home, and I'm moving in a whole different direction now, right?
Yeah, man, and but I'm gonna give you one more time, like how all these things impact you for the rest of your life and how difficult it gets. So first off, I come out and I've been studying all my life, the whole bid about real estate. I said, I'm gonna be a real estate agent, I'm gonna be a real estate broker. Feel like I could do good at this. So I read a bunch of books on that. When I come home, I was able to secure a job at a company called City Habitats, one of the biggest real estate
Yeah, I definitely heard of it. Well known,
in New York. I'm like, damn, I'm on my way. They was like, listen, you could just, at the time, it was like, you could have a desk, you could do computer work, you could take pictures and stuff, but you can't actually start till you don't get all your licenses and stuff. Mm-hmm. I said, okay, no problem. I'm ready to do whatever. I'm just happy to, be able to do whatever I got to do. So then first, I take the city test for real estate. I pass it. Then I take the state test. I pass it too. I'm like, damn, I'm on my way. State comes back, says, because of your record, you're denied. So that was like such a blow because once again, how, even when you want to turn around, how much of an uphill battle you have to climb because these things will still haunt you. Mm-hmm. Then I was lucky. I had a friend that was a manager at New York Sports Club, got me a job as a personal trainer downtown on 38th Street. And that was my first job I was able to get.
Shout out to him, man.
But I'm just trying to say, like, they don't, like, it's for the youth to understand, like, the impacts from how easy you could get back in trouble to even when you turn around and you have that come to Jesus transformation moment, you still will not be able to have all the options that a regular person has.
Yeah, and you sharing that now, and that was back then, Vlad, to see that today, this thing is still going on, I'm glad you share that so the youth could hear, because it's true. It's like I always say, when we come home, it's the bid after the bid. Vlad, just last week, I always, I stay in contact with a few guys that we became, tight in there just to check up on them, make sure they're still on the right track. And it hurt me to hear that one of my friends who already been working for Uber too, Vlad, similar situation. He was like, I'm on my way. I'm out the streets. But every year, they run back his background check. So for some reason, the first year, it wasn't no issue. Now when it came back, because of his record, they suspended his TLC. So, it's very sad and unfortunate, and that's some of the things that I'm definitely going to continue to focus on with this platform, try to help guys, So, yeah, man, there's nothing really good, and I'm glad you was able to change that. So, after that whole personal training, what you focus on, Vlad? Like,
so I was.
You never really left the weed, the bud game.
No, I never left the bud game. What I told myself was like, I'm not touching anything else. The farthest I'll ever go is bud, because like, I always felt like, it was something that wasn't doing anything negative to people. And God forbid, if I was to get in trouble, I could handle what comes with that more than if I was doing anything else. And so then I started linking up with my partner, Ramon. We started hanging out, experimenting, going out of town and stuff like that. And then I got together with my other two partners, Jay and Omar. They had a recording studio down in 38th Street. And then we were like, you know what? Like, we saw everybody, we were looking for something different. We know things were changing and we needed to change with the times. We just didn't know what. So it was like, let's see if we do an event, a cannabis event, and we invite all our friends and see what happens. And we invited all our friends, and we had a little small dispensary where people could buy weed at. And then there was couches and people hang out, and it popped off. And then we're like, oh, we got something here. Then we started doing that like once a week, once a month, then once a week. Then at the peak, we were doing it 7 days a week, 200-300 people a night. And we became, I remember in 2019, Forbes called us the Studio 54 Cannabis. Because it would be like, you would have a street dude here, an NBA player here, a football player, a doctor, a lawyer. Like, we were bringing like all these worlds together, because at the time, everybody was smoking on the low, but nobody had a place where they could go together.
Yeah.
And that became the place. Like, where you will meet cool people and everybody smokes, and like we know we were on to something. So from there we were like, this is more than events now. This is a movement, because at the time all the big cannabis movements and brands were all on the West Coast.
Yeah.
So we're like, yo, we could be like the New York brand that represents the way New York does things. So cannabis wasn't legal yet, but we trademarked and put the company out as a lifestyle company, because that's what we represent, the New York City lifestyle. So we started with a podcast first, then we had a newsletter, we had clothing, merchandise, the events, and then we started going to conferences, learning more about the regulations, the business, and really learning, becoming the cool place for after parties on the lifestyle tower. But we also had all the big corporate guys coming to our lounge. So we started learning about where the conferences were. We started learning from them how the business works on the legal side. And then we got into advocacy because COVID hit. We had to stop doing the events, and then legalization was starting to come up on New York. And we had the fortune of going to all these conferences, being around all these people. So we kind of knew what was coming to New York with the legalization. And what we knew was that in every other state, they made sure that people that looked like me and you were not in ownership. People that had records for cannabis were not in ownership. So we were like, yo, we got to fight to make sure it don't go down like that here. So we started going to Albany and, advocating. We created a petition, got thousands of signatures. We started being at every meeting
you guys
with the
put in that work, man.
Yeah, and so we used our platform, similar to the way you are, to make sure that things go good for marginalized people, for people that suffered, because people don't know that. Now they see, Jason, right? This is projected to be a $6 billion a year industry in New York, right?
Yeah.
But how was that built? Cannabis has only been legal for 4 years. You know how it was built? By all the people that you saw out here building this industry before it was legal, that got killed, got deported, went to prison, died. And now it's like, we can't forget about that. We got to make sure that everybody is able, if they want to be able to cross over to the legal side, because that's who built this in the first place.
Of course. So that's amazing, man. That whole story, like that's how the whole vision for Happy Munkey came about, where you and your partner Ramon. And I have to say, those parties, they were definitely hit. You heard Vlad, I was definitely in attendance in a few of them,
Man.
To think from there, it was definitely, it made it a safe space for everyone come to hang out and not have to feel like, they were weird for wanting to smoke a joint. But to see you take that and involve it into this, it's, motivating me. Like I always tell you, yo, man, you really motivate me. And I'm sure you motivate all formerly incarcerated individuals coming home. And this is why I appreciate you having this sit down. This is why it was so important, because this is what I really want to push through my movement and through this platform. Like, if you ever out there feeling stuck or thinking, about your past is going to define you, it's never too late to come home, and rewrite your story, and we're seeing it firsthand with everything that you've accomplished. How long, Vlad, and there's a reason why I'm asking this, like, how long would you say did it take, though, for that whole process that you really put in that work to build Happy Munkey, lifestyle brand, and this legal cannabis dispensary from the ground up? How long?
We're going on 8 years.
8 years.
So think about this, right? And this is relevant to what you're saying. 8 years of the brand, right? But to actually get in the business and be in the business as a operator and a businessman with a license, it's only been 8 months.
Oh,
so think about that journey. So the company's been around for almost 8 years, but all the process to get to the point where we're actually in business selling weed, it's only been 8 months. So to give you an idea, what a process it is to actually get into the business in the right way.
Of course, yeah. I asked that because, Vlad, just the other day when I actually reached out to you about, having this sit down, we was talking, we was catching up, and I shared with you, you know, how sometimes I'm human, you know, I feel like I'm not doing enough. And sometimes, you know, I might, you know, feel like, yeah, maybe I'm moving at a turtle speed. But I want to share that so, you know, those coming home, you know, those still stuck trying to find a way out, so they could really understand that nothing happens overnight. You know, especially when you're trying to be great and build something great, you got to trust the process. You know, I have this formula that I always try to, you know, share with the guys out there, and which is to stay focused, disciplined, and patient. And I'm sure those are the three components that you, your partner, Ramona, and your other partners definitely had to make sure, you know, you stood by, because as you just said, you put in work for 8 years, but to actually be doing it on a legal level, it's only been 8 months. So, you know, I'm glad you share that, you know, so the people out there listening can understand. Listen, things might take you longer than expected, but it's like you told me yourself the other day, you know, Vlad, we're not taking shortcuts, you know, but we're not compromising our freedom either. So, you know, it's a win-win, you know?
I got something to touch into that, right? So you can understand the way it works. What happens is, especially people that come from our background, we are used to instant gratification. We're used to things happening in real time and for, like I said, getting instant gratification. But there's a reason why, even though we got that instant gratification, you never were able to build anything when you were doing these things and living that fast life. You were never able to create anything, because things that come fast go fast. So the best analogy I could give you, Jason, so people understand, because I still go through it today, is that I had to change my mentality from that instant gratification and the knot in the pocket and the cash to like, what am I accumulating in different avenues, like social capital, wealth capital, net worth capital, and moral capital. So what does that mean? That means that, like I told you before, I'm a firm believer, Jason, right? Because like I told you that when we were talking, that of course, you know, the way you got to look at it is like, we have these why and these purposes, right? So like my why and purpose with doing what I'm doing, with Happy Munkey, with this, we're opening the first one here, Legally Indictment. It's like, I want to be an inspiration to the people. I want to inspire people. I want to educate the people. I want to employ my people. I want to uplift my community, right? Those are the why and the purposes, right?
Oh, yeah.
The gasoline and the oxygen for me to do that is revenue, sales, and money. You know what I mean?
Of course.
But what I'm trying to say, it's a different purpose than like, yo, I just want the bag because we're going to the club tonight and because we're going to go buy the new clothes. You know what I'm trying to say?
Of course.
So what I'm trying to say is that, so now you have to understand that we have these bigger why and purposes that are bigger than ourselves. And the truth is that Rome wasn't built in a day, and we have to change, especially in our community, Jason, what we believe is success. Way I was raised and what I used to believe was success is whoever had the bag, whoever had the fly cars, the jewelry, who was living the best lifestyle. That was the ultimate level of success. I have a different now perspective on what the ultimate level of success is. To me, the ultimate level of success is before we transpire from this world to wherever we go afterwards, whoever has the highest number of people that you impacted positively, that's the ultimate level of success.
Agree.
And I think that that's why now I'm able, no matter what I get thrown at, even in this business, is that everything is not all glitters and glam. There's a lot of issues, got to pay a lot of taxes, a lot of compliance, a lot of different things, you know what I mean? But I know that what I'm doing is impacting so many people and doing so, it helps you deal with it.
Absolutely.
And what happens is when you're moving with a purpose like that, things fall into place better than when you're just like, I just want to get the bag. And I'm going to tell you the flip side. So when everybody else goes through out there, so to give you a good analogy of what people don't see, Jason, and this goes for you too. So I'm going to compare it to a tree. what people see with a tree is, right, they see the top and they see like how big it gets, right, Jason? And the leaves and the branches, right? But I don't know if you know this, Jason, but a tree grows two ways at the same time. Just as much as it grows on the top, it grows in the bottom with the roots.
Yep.
And I'm gonna tell you how deep it goes. When you first put the seed in the ground for the tree, it grows to the bottom first and gets the roots first. But nobody sees the dark dampness that it goes through the bottom to set its foundation with the roots. People only see, Jason, when it comes, because one part of the tree, gravity pulls it down, which is the foundation. The other one, once it cracks the ground, then it starts moving up to the end. Nobody sees the foundation and how hard the tree had to push down to get its roots connected. People only see the part that's shining towards the
They see
light.
the glory, not the story. Yeah, man, that's deep, Vlad. I know you told me that the other day, and I even told you thank you, and I'm thanking you again for sharing that. Cause yeah, sometimes I go through my own thoughts, like, damn, man, I'm doing so much, and what you said about when you start moving and living with purpose, that the doors will open. I can't even, sit here and tell you how many people I've been able, good, amazing people, been able to meet on the strength of what I'm doing, that really show appreciation for what I'm doing. And through purpose and God, I've definitely been connected, with some good individuals. So you're right. I was also the same. Back then, it was all about having the knot in the pocket, going to the club.
So we were taught successes.
Yeah, of course. That's what we were taught. Who had the flyest car back, like you said, Vlad, everything, the hottest gear. And now it's like to see even how our mindset has changed is beautiful, because that's not what it's about. It's about impacting. And you are definitely doing that with everything you're doing. You are actually a pioneer in this whole legal cannabis business. Actually, this is the first cannabis in Uptown, right, Vlad?
This is the first, that's another thing I'm glad you mentioned, Jason. This is the first legal licensed cannabis dispensary up here in Inwood in Washington Heights. And I think that's another thing that I'm trying to set an example of, and people need to understand that we never got to see, right? I remember when I grew up, right, Jason, what I used to see was, even when people made it to a certain status and they wanted to transition, they would run away from our community and go to Miami, DR, and say, I'm doing a business over there. And now I'm out to prove that you can run back to your community and do something positive and be a positive inspiration to the community, because also it doesn't help when somebody from the community gets into the position and doesn't try to reinvest or come back to their community to be an example. Because the reason that me and you never thought about success being like this was because we didn't see anybody like, yo, damn, Fulano made all this money and he came back and he did something positive. We just didn't see those things. So I think it's important for people to see that even though we're crossing over to these positive purposes, that we still haven't lost our morals, principles, and values, who we are during the process.
Of course.
And I think that that's what people think, like, oh, you sold out, or you became a lame now. It's like, no, you can be the real right that you are while doing real right things.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Vlad, because even for me to, break out of my shell and come home as this new version of myself, I can't tell you that the same way, Vlad, I've seen people, big me up and show support. I've also seen some of those of my closest drift away, but I'm good with that. Cause like you said, we're doing this for a bigger purpose. Like you always say, it's not about clout. We don't do it for the clout, right, Vlad?
Do it for the culture.
And like you're doing something here, as well as myself, that is not about us. It's about creating, opportunity, like you just said, for you to be able to come back to a place where, me and you were both, let's say, part of the problem, and now we're part of the solution, is beautiful. Like I was born out here, born and raised Dykeman. You right there, Harlem, and, to see the energy, how we had back then, and use that same energy to create, these platforms to empower others is amazing, Vlad? So, you have this location, but I know you guys also opened up one in Brooklyn, right? Where's that at, Vlad?
Yeah, we got a second location in downtown Brooklyn in the Fulton Mall, 453 Fulton Street.
All right, and so you have your second ones. What other plans we could look for, for Happy Munkey on the dispensary side and as the whole lifestyle brand itself?
Well, we want to keep doing events. We're gonna keep doing education. I want to keep doing public speaking. I speak all over the world. I've spoken in every cannabis conference in America, UK, Spain, man. Mexico, because it's happening on both sides. You see, the same way that I am becoming an example for, like you said, like kid that grew up like you in Dykeman Projects right now says, damn, look at Jason. He grew up, look what he's doing. Kid that's on the corner right now, 139, said, yo, Vlad was on this corner and look what he's doing. It's like, without those examples, we were young at one time. You don't care what nobody says. I watch what you do. Without people seeing that, you know what I mean? It's hard for people to see themselves. So that's what we're doing with that. So then on the flip side, what I was saying with the conferences and the speaking is that now I'm on these stages with a person that went to Harvard, another person that worked in Wall Street. And now I'm forcing them to look at people that grew up the way we did, that didn't come from their circumstances, to be like, damn, there's value in these people too. They are entrepreneurs. They can do things that we didn't think they can do. So it's like education on both sides.
Yeah.
Because everybody has their assumptions about how everybody is, but it's not true. And so because they don't get in the same room. So now I'm representing our people, our community on these stages and making them look at the next kid from Dykeman or Uptown or Harlem in a different way.
Amazing. That's amazing work, Vlad. And I think that falls right into my next question. So let's say for someone who's sitting in prison right now, someone who's just getting released, or someone who's just out here just really trying to find a way out and figure it out, that might be thinking like, will I ever get another shot? Like, what advice can you give them, Vlad? And even so, if they're looking to start a business, what advice can you give them, saying they're going to be confronted with whatever challenges? Like, how were you able to overcome that? And what's your words that you could share with them?
The words that I could share with them is that there is a lot of distractions out here. There's a lot of temptation out here. But the truth is that every day that you're free and healthy, you can figure it out, because this has always been in general, but more now than ever, they gate kept information from us. Like, me and you, we couldn't have access to like what was happening in different places, different opportunities, because if somebody didn't tell us physically, we couldn't find out, right? Now, with the internet, you have access to information and places that you wouldn't before. So I know you've heard this before and it's gonna be cliche, but it's just the truth. We all know, Jason, that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting different results.
Of course.
So if you don't change when you come home, the people, places, and things you do than before you did, you're probably gonna end up in a compromised situation. So you gotta look for people, because we all know you come home with that up north glow. You have the energy to win. You have something special when you come from there that people don't have out there. Discipline, energy, mentality. You can't let the wrong people, places, and things drain that from you, because it very, very fast. You have to go and find more people, places, and things that are on your same energy and wavelength. Find positive people, find a mentor, find groups that's doing stuff. And I think that is gonna help you find your path easier than if you go back to the block.
Of course.
And you go back with the same people. Because then they bring that glow and then you'll be back at square one.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you anymore. Vlad, that's an advice that I also push out there. And hey, listen, man, it's not to say you got to cut your people off. Like I always say, Vlad, Like one of the counselors back when I was in Hale Creek, it always used to tell us this, like, I could still love you, but I'm gonna love you from a distance, because what you need to keep in mind is that your freedom and your life is what matters most. Nothing can matter more than that. So, either your people are gonna be understanding and supportive of what you're doing and the things you're trying to get done. And if not, then the truth is they were never for you. They're not rooting for you, because someone who knows you're coming home, Vlad, they can't get upset because you're trying to change it up and do things different, So I think I couldn't agree with a better advice than that, Vlad. And as far as, we see what's going on with the youth, like, what would Vlad tell the younger Vlad and the younger Jason if we have someone to give us advice before the first time we got incarcerated, like how their perception of the streets and their perception of prison? What advice would you tell the youth right now that really needs the guidance, Vlad?
I would tell the youth that right now, the same thing I said, like there are endless amounts of opportunity to become an entrepreneur, to learn so many different skills. And those years of the youth between 18 to, let's say, 29 are the time when you can go and try so many different things out, from different classes, things you want to study, to internships, to different jobs, to different businesses you're trying to try. Because all you're going to do is either win or learn. You never lose, as you know.
Of course.
So while people are waiting to take the perfect shot, if they took 100 shots between 18 and 29 in a positive way, from school to classes to jobs to trying to start businesses, by the time they're 29, they'll have life figured out way more than just looking at it like I did back then, that it was just all about the moment, just having fun and not maximizing all the potential business things I could have done.
Yeah, of course. So, as I said, when Vlad, we started this interview, why it was so important, and I was so happy to be able to have this interview with you, that we're both, a true example of the foundation of my movement, which is we're off the count and making it count. So, I want to know, when you hear Vlad off the count and making it count, what does that mean to Vladimir Bautista?
It means a lot, man. It just means that every day I get up and I get to use my time and my energy to try to leave this world better than the way I found it, and that feels good, because, yeah, of course, I want to do well, I want to be successful financially, but every day, me knowing that, I'm either gonna go educate somebody on the medicinal benefits of cannabis. I'm employing people from my community. I am inspiring others to do the same. People that are incarcerated are looking like, damn, I was with Vlad. Look what he's doing. So just to be able to be a positive impact on my ecosystem makes me feel full, and I'm not on the count, I'm making it count, my brother.
That's a fact, man. Beautiful words, Vlad, you mentioned community, and that's something that you've been able to do with your partners through this whole movement and this dispensary, because this being right here in Dykeman, which is a well-known street, it definitely drives a lot of traffic here, which ultimately just helps all these small businesses. I mean, I came here not too long ago where they was hosting a conference here. You was doing one of your interviews as usual, beautiful events. It was a beautiful networking event. I actually connected and met a few people that today they're helping me out with other opportunities. And I met them here at your dispensary. So,
It makes me feel good, man. It was the first time in history, the Washington Heights Chamber of Commerce, we hosted them here. They usually do it like at a bar, at a club, at a restaurant, and we did it here for the first time. So that was really good,
All right, man. So, man, Vlad, I think, I kind of cover, what I wanted to fulfill with my interview, and you helped me fulfill that, which is you was able to share hope, provide resources and provide real guidance, and that's definitely what I'm gonna continue to do with my mission. So I thank you. Just any last advice you want to give the listeners out there, any words you want to leave us with, Vlad, and also if you could tell them where to find you on your social media pages. I know this location is 151 Dykeman, so go ahead and tell the listeners, man, before we sign off.
So you can find the company, everything, happymonkey.com. You can find everything there. Me, Vladimir Bautista, on all platforms. You can find me there. I need you to know, everybody, remember, you're too blessed to be stressed. Things will get greater later. Always choose happy. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, keep it real. Don't squeal. Don't steal. And life will hand you a good deal. Thank you, my brother.
Vlad, thank you, man.
Keep doing what you're doing, man. You're doing something positive that people need, man.
I couldn't be able to do it, Vlad, without people like you by my corner supporting and motivating me on a daily, So thank you again for your time. I know you're very busy and you made it happen. Truly means a lot. And to my listeners, there you have it. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We just wrapped up another amazing episode with another amazing guest. Please, you can find me on all my social pages, Made Up North NYC, and at Off the Count Podcast. And also look out for that official Off the Count coaching program dropping soon. Peace, love, and blessings. And remember, every single day, we off the count and making it count. Till next one, fellas. Take care. Yo, Vlad, man. Thank you, man. That was great, man. Thank you so much, my brother. Appreciate it, man.